I was standing in a pool of blood. All my lighting was set up around me. It's perfect. Every light exactly where it needs to be for a beautiful, dignified, sacred image. And I'm standing in a pool of blood. Let me back this up. I was shooting an annual report. The client's specialty was halal beef, and the art director had this vision. And it was a real vision. He pictured this Muslim cleric, flowing robes, a big ceremonial sword, standing on the kill floor, something dignified, a sacred image. And as a concept, it was beautiful on paper. So I go in. I set up all my lighting for that shot. The whole floor lit for this dignified ceremonial image. Everything's in place, it's perfect. And then the reality of the slaughterhouse walks out. A guy dressed in full yellow rubber, holding a stun gun and a sharp knife. The cow comes in, drops to its knees, it's cut. And within minutes, I'm standing there, all my careful lighting around me, standing in a pool of blood. I just looked at the art director and I said, is this what you expected? Yeah, he had nothing. Okay, I think we're done here because there is no version of this you can put in an annual report. Everybody in that room had their job. The art director had his vision. I had my lighting. The brief was perfect. I committed to it. And it had never once touched reality. Now that's the job or the part of commercial photography that nobody really warned you about. This extends beyond lighting and camera. It's finding the problem the client never said. Because the client gives you a brief, and the brief is not the problem. The brief is what they think the problem is. And those are two totally different aspects. And the entire difference between a photographer who gets hired once and one who gets hired for years really survives in that difference. See, the real problem is the one nobody really talks about. Sometimes the client doesn't say it. Sometimes, like a man standing in yellow rubber on a kill floor, nobody in the room even thought about asking him. So how do you find it? Well, I see it as two ways, and they kind of look like opposites. One is knowing more than the client. The other is knowing you can't trust anyone in the room, including the client. See, the slaughterhouse was the second one. Let me show you the first one. I had a new jewelry client, and I shot all their promotional flyers. For the first shoot we did together, they showed up with hundreds of pieces of jewelry. It was a lot of jewelry for a 4-page flyer, and their instinct was to fill the cover every square centimeter, because to them, each centimeter of print space was an opportunity. More jewelry, more value, more reason to buy. That was the brief. That was their understanding. That was the problem they thought they had. How do we fit the most into this flyer? And they were completely wrong. Because a cover crammed with a ton of pieces isn't abundance. It's just noise. The eye doesn't know where to focus on, so it exits and you turn the page or throw it out. So I pushed back. And this is the first time I worked with this client, and I just flat out said, no, it's not how we're doing the cover. And it wasn't a quick conversation, it was a long one, convincing them to do the opposite of their instinct. Just pick one piece, the promotional piece. And the first one, it was a watch, and it had to be shot to perfection. The watch was the giveaway, the prize. The whole job of that cover was to make the person holding the flyer really want that watch. They have to want it badly enough to walk through their door. Now, the mechanism to the flyer was simple. It was a scratch and win. Scratch the card, and a certain number of people win the watch for free with any purchase over a couple $100. Now, here's the part I love. That watch, the Grail, the one the whole campaign was built to make you crave, their cost was $7. Men's and women's $7 watch, their cost. Valued to the consumer at $300. And I shot it so it looked like every penny of that $300. That's my job. That campaign ran for years. Each season we had a new star item on the cover, and it worked. Now, if they had done it their way, the cover packed to the wall to wall, it would have had no impact at all. It would have been static noise. That's the first way you find the unspoken problem. You have to know the industry well enough to hear what the client should have asked for. They said fit more. The real problem was make them want it. Those are completely different problems. And those problems have opposite solutions. And it starts with one question. When the jeweler showed up with hundreds of pieces, my first question, no ifs, ands, or buts, is which pieces have to be in this flyer? And from there, you just keep asking, which one fits this promotion? Which one carries the theme? And you just keep fine-tuning it question by question until you have a really solid image of exactly what it needs to say. So that's the whole method. I see it as two moves, but really it's just one move from two different directions, right? Above the brief and below it. The jeweler is above. You have to know the industry well enough to hear what the client should have asked for. They said fit more. The real problem was make them want it. Those demand opposite solutions. And you can only catch that when you commit to watching what actually works, which lets you see the question behind the question. To me, that's what makes photography such an amazing profession, because it's your job to dive into these things as deep as possible. And it's often the simple things like knowing that watch hands are always at 11:10, why shoes are shot at certain angles. That's your job as a photographer. It's research, it's experience, it's watching. Now, the slaughterhouse is below. You don't trust the brief's version of reality until you've confirmed it with the people who live it. Their hands are actually doing the work. The art director's vision is a starting point. It was beautiful, necessary, and completely unverified. I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. Before you light a single image, you go to the kill floor and you ask the man in the yellow rubber what really happens in that room. Now here's what connects them. In both cases, it's about finding the hidden truth. The jeweler genuinely believed the problem was space. The art director generally saw a sacred image in his head. They weren't wrong, they both arrived inside a preconceived image. It was their own framing. And the framing limits what they could see. And that's your actual job, to see beyond the framing. You step above it and ask what should they have wanted. And you step below it and ask what actually exists. And the gap between those two answers, that's where the real problem lives. The slaughterhouse, yeah, that was on me. My lighting was set. I was ready. But I never asked enough questions with the right people, the owners of the plant, the men who worked that floor. The art director and I both bought into a picture that was in his head, and neither of us confirmed it. So here's the discipline. Before you commit to anything, before a single light goes up, you ask two questions. One, what are we really trying to accomplish here? Not what's in the brief. What is the outcome this image needs to produce in the world? Who actually knows what happens in this room? And you go find that person and you ask them, not the brief holder, not the person signing the check, the person whose hands touch the actual thing, above the brief and below it. The brief is never the problem. The brief is just where you start looking. See, no one is hiding the real problem from you or withholding it on purpose. They just don't know how to say it. Half the time, they don't even know it's there. So your job, the real job, the one nobody put in the brief, is to ask the questions that pull it into the light. To go above them and below them until you find the thing nobody realizes they need to tell you. See, the hard part is everything nobody knows to say out loud or even think about it. The camera is always the easy part. One last thing about that slaughterhouse. Shot the kill floor all day, took 2 steaks home, barbecued them that evening with a buddy, and they were good. So tell me the one you thought of during this video. The brief that was beautiful on paper, and then the reality that walked out and ruined it. The story where you did everything right and the scene still got it wrong. Thank you.